Hello, my friends. Miss Story Mystery here with another collection of true scary stories from around the web. Episode 19 includes several tales, including hearing something unexplained on the phone and a creepy encounter in a graveyard. Sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 19 of Miss Story Mystery's Creepy Tales of Mysteries and Oddities. I got some helium balloons for my son's birthday and put them in the basement of our house. I'm just hanging out downstairs on this night with the balloons over in the corner. Decide to go upstairs to bed. A few minutes later, I wake up to him crying. I go in his room, and the red balloon is hovering over him. It had to navigate through all the doorways, up the stairs, make turns and stops that only something living could do. Freaks me out still. No rational way I can explain how it did it. Back in the 90s, my boyfriend arrived home from school early one day for some odd reason. Without being overly observant, he goes up to his room in the dark, quiet house and grabs the phone to call his friend Frank. He hears his mom on the line talking to one of her other nurse friends about a patient. He hangs up the phone and waits a while, but curiously looks into the driveway. Doesn't see his mother's car. He then searches the house, calling her name. No mom. A couple hours later, her car pulls into the driveway, and he asks her if she came home for a minute that day. She hadn't. He then recounts the phone conversation. She claims that she had that exact conversation earlier, from work, 2 towns away, with another nurse who was also at work. Their home phone was in no way associated with the phones at the hospital. I was in my bed at night with all the lights off. I had my eyes closed but noticed a light had come on. I looked around and saw what appeared to be a single point of light floating in the corner. All I could see was light, as if it was made from light or was very small and emitting a lot of light. For some reason, I was paralyzed with fear and got under the covers. I looked back out and saw the thing seemingly move about as it was sentient and frightened that I had seen it, then leave by going through the outside wall of my room. The fear, the feeling that it was sentient, and the feeling that it was also experiencing fear were very strong. When it was over, I felt a lot of regret that I hadn't watched it the entire time or figured out what it was. First of all, I lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. I went to Disney World and bought a black Roxy purse. I was so excited about it. Lame, I know. I unpacked from the trip and laid it out on my bed to put up later. A few days later, I went to look for it to wear out one night, and I couldn't find it. I thought maybe it had gotten rolled up in the sheets or comforter, but I looked everywhere in that apartment and couldn't find it. A few months later, I came into my room, and it's laying on my bed. When I was little, probably around 6 or 8, my parents had dug deep holes for the big posts that support the corners for a deck they were building, the ones that get concrete poured around them. I looked down the hole, which seemed 10 feet deep, and there appeared to be a face in the bottom that talked to me. It was very odd. I went to a graveyard at about midnight with a group of friends to visit an old friend who died in a car accident. While we were standing around his grave, telling good stories about him, I hear a faint voice of an elderly woman. One of my friends says out loud, "Oh shit." I stand up and look towards the source. I saw a very old woman, literally dressed in a white, tattered nightgown, about 100 feet away. She started talking to us. "Sir, get over here now, I need help." We stood still. No one said a thing. The part that weirded me out was that she used the singular word, sir, when there were clearly 5 of us. She started walking closer and started speaking again, but even louder. Boys, I need your help now. Note the plurality. Then she literally started running towards us, screaming nonsense. We were all scared out of our minds, so we ran back to the car with this old woman close behind. We reached the car, which was a two-door, and everyone got in before me, including the driver, so the driver's seat was blocking my entrance to the back seat. I yelled as I approached the car, and he got out and let me in. Doors slammed, and we flew down the small graveyard roads to the opposite side where the exit was. This is where things got weird. We get to the other side of the graveyard in like 10 seconds. We're speeding toward the exit, and we approach a curved road that was well lit, and the old lady ran onto the road. No way she ran over there that fast. I see her trying to chase us down, and finally, she lets out the most terrifying scream I've ever heard. Sounded like she was being murdered slowly and painfully. We fled the scene just seconds after and never returned. 4 other friends of mine can testify as witnesses to that night. By far the most terrifying experience in my life. A few years ago, I was sleeping in my room, and I woke up because I heard a banging noise. I thought, oh, it must be my idiot dog running into things in the dark, so I ignored it and walked to the bathroom. Right as I exit the bathroom, I'm basically blindside tackled from my right and knocked flat on the floor. From my position on the floor, I saw a silhouette of a person rush past me and open my bedroom door, which I had solidly closed going out, enter, and slam it closed. For some reason, my reaction was to run into my room right behind it. I enter my room not more than 3 seconds after the door had closed, and the person isn't there. I stood in the doorway frozen because how could there not have been a person there? I am on the 2nd story with locked windows and no other doors into or out of my room. My mom heard the door slam and walked upstairs to ask me not to slam doors in the middle of the night, and then I was really freaked out because it meant whatever had opened and slammed the door was real. I didn't sleep any more that night. My childhood home was haunted. Lots of weird stuff happened that my brother and I just kinda accepted. Once when my brother and I were 7 or 8, we were in the kitchen drawing pictures with crayons. They were in a big butter tub with a flimsy plastic lid. My mom said she was going to shower and to put the crayons away because we were going to dinner. She went upstairs, the water turned on, but my brother and I could not find the lid to the bucket. After a few minutes of looking, I finally asked, "Did someone take it?" It then flew at us, like someone had tossed a frisbee, and someone laughed hysterically. We were the only ones in the house, and Mom was in the shower. When I was a teenager, probably 15, 16, we lived in an old house that had many additions over the years. One of these additions was a large sunroom conversion at the back of our house, which was at the 2nd story level with an attached deck. One sweaty summer night, I was sitting in the back room, all of the windows thrown open, the back door open wide with our screen door locked, and it was around 2 or 3 a.m. I was watching TV, and I started to get the weirdest prickling feeling on my neck. It felt like I was not noticing something important. I got up and wandered into the kitchen, roamed the house for a bit, then gave up the ghost and came back. After about 10 minutes, I felt the same weird sensation. Next door to us, the neighbor had a large barn that was converted into a 4-car garage with white siding, and the direct line of sight out the screen door from where I was sitting was the side of the garage. As it happened, my neighbor had a son a little bit older than me who had just gotten home. As he pulled into their driveway, the headlights illuminated the side of their garage, and for one brief instant, the outline of someone standing on the other side of my screen door was thrown into a sharp relief, and I clearly saw a person staring in at me. Naturally, I screamed at the top of my lungs, and I heard them thundering down the back stairs. My dad came running into the back room carrying his handgun, and I couldn't even speak. I just pointed towards the back door, and he ran outside after them. He didn't find anyone. I never sat out there at night without every blind closed and without the door locked again. To this day, I still have issues with windows being open at night because of the uncertainty of what is going on outside. When I was a kid, I had a dog that never barked and was not aggressive at all. One night, she was sleeping in my bed with me, and she went nuts just barking and growling at a corner in my room. She stood over top of me and was just flat out going to tear this corner up. There was absolutely nothing there that I could see. Then, all of a sudden, my door that was cracked flew open. Nothing came in, and I didn't see anything go out. My dog laid down and went back to sleep like nothing happened, and I was left completely freaked out. I'm not a big believer in paranormal things, and that's the only occurrence that's ever happened to me. But since then, I have my suspicions on paranormal activity. I've always loved the woods. There's something about being surrounded by nature that just makes me feel at peace. So when my friends and I decided to go on a camping trip, I was all for it. We found a cabin in the middle of the woods that looked perfect. It was small and rustic, but it had everything we needed. We spent the first few days hiking, fishing, and swimming in the lake. It was the perfect way to relax and escape the hustle and bustle of city life. On our last night in the cabin, we decided to have a bonfire. We roasted marshmallows and told stories around the fire. After a while, we all started to get tired and went to bed. I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep when I heard a noise outside my window. It sounded like someone was walking around on the porch. I sat up in bed and listened. The noise stopped. I waited a few minutes, but I didn't hear anything else. I lay back down and closed my eyes. A few minutes later, I heard the noise again. This time, it was louder. I got out of bed and went to the window. I pulled back the curtain and looked outside. There was no one there. I was starting to feel scared. I went back to bed and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about the noise I had heard. I wondered if there was someone outside my window. I wondered if the cabin was haunted. I finally fell asleep, but I had nightmares all night. In my dreams, I was being chased by a ghost. I woke up the next morning feeling exhausted and scared. I told my friends about what I had heard, but they didn't believe me. They said it was probably just an animal or the wind blowing through the trees. But I knew what I had heard. We left the cabin that morning and never went back. I've never been able to shake the feeling that the cabin was haunted. I don't know who the ghost was or why it was haunting the cabin, but I know that I'll never forget my experience in that haunted cabin. First off, I've always been kind of scared of the dark. Only when I'm alone, I suppose it's a rational fear, but I can't really stand it. For about the past week, I've been dog sitting for my parents. Yep, whole week just me and the dogs. It's been really boring, and so far I haven't left and even seen any other real people. Anyhow, as the week goes on, I keep seeing things and hearing things, probably a part of my imagination. The dogs generally leave you alone if you sleep, but last night I woke up to them barking their asses off in the bathroom. I slowly peeled back the shower curtain, and even though there was nothing there, it still scared the hell out of me. This morning, I once again hear barking and scratching coming from the bathroom. I open the door and my dog comes running out. The door is never closed, generally even when using it because it's a hard door to open and close. My dog was scared so bad that he refuses to leave my side right now. Basically, the two of us are curled up on the couch, refusing to look towards the bathroom door. Well, that's all for episode 19. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you did, please like, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Now, if you have any true stories that you would like to share, feel free to send a message to itsmizstorymystery@gmail.com. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay spooky.